Well, now we're going to talk about how to engage with the team during the conduct of the course. And by this time, of course, I'm talking about all the teams, the catering team, the setup team, and the connection team. When the course kicks off, it's important that you've set the expectations of timings and setup and all that kind of thing very, very clearly, so you don't have to stress about it too much on the nights. There's always going to be little problems that emerge as things go on, but the reality is you really want to set things up so clearly and explain things so clearly. Writing it down and sending people that sort of material can always be very helpful with that. That by the time the day arrives, it's pretty simple. What I like to do with the setup team is I will be there with them probably for the duration of the first course, but as a minimum, the first 3 weeks, to make sure that what I want to happen does happen. If you want to check out what that looks like, you can go back and look at the other video series on running an evangelistic course. In the first episode, there's a little bit of things about setting up the room, and I'll do another video about some of the principles of that thing a little bit later on. But suffice to say, I want to have the guy or the girl who's setting these things up. To be honest, it's always a guy. It's moving heavy furniture around. There's no drama, but they're setting up the furniture and they're there doing that. They're making it look the way that I want to look because I think that I know better than they do about the vibe that I'm looking for. So that's okay, they're not offended, but they set that up. I'll do it with them to make sure that they're on page about it all. They're have it in the afternoon. If I can, I'll pray with them at the end of that, particularly the first few times I'm doing it with them, just to remind them of the eternal realities of what they're doing. The catering team, now the catering leader, you should always appoint a leader who you communicate just with one person. They should be well equipped to know what's going to happen on the day. They know how to set things out. They know what you're expecting, but they may require another call or two, particularly as the course begins, the first couple of times you run it, just to make sure that they're going to be there on time, that if they've got servers who are going to help, that they've been connected with one another, all that type of stuff. This area can be tricky. There's a personality thing here where it's a kind of, there's a very pragmatic, practical outcome of it, and that can mean there can sometimes be tension about getting the right people in the right place at the right time with the right food. Main thing is that you bring in a sense of calm and relax, and if worse comes to worse, run to Subway or Donut King and just just get things out there. It's fine, not Donut King, go to Dunkin' Donuts, I don't know, whatever, but just that you can be there, but really that you're leading on the day to make sure everything's taken care of. The connection team, as the team that's going to be there on the time, they're the ones who you really have the most involvement with. Now, as I mentioned before, you want to have allocated a connection team leader. So for me, that's Jess. She's in that other video series on the 3rd episode. And I communicate specifically with her. She's the one who runs the team WhatsApp, but I will sometimes tell her, can you WhatsApp this or that? I don't want to undermine her leadership, but embolden and empower it, give her the opportunity to exercise it. So she will be there. She'll message, make sure everyone's there, 7 o'clock. We mentioned it the week before in the training. They're going to get there, and we're going to spend 7 to 7:15 praying. For the first course, you might have to run that prayer time as you're modeling to your leader what it will look like, or helping lead them in that space. But you really want to have it so it's handed over so that they can run it, not you. That's just awesome when you get to see that happen. So the first couple of weeks, a lot of that will be information, but as the weeks progress, that time is where you may say things like, hey, so any conversations from last week you want to talk about, things that you're worried about or opportunities, things to look out for. So they have a bit of hubbub, chat about that, pray for the night, and then head out to the foyer, the welcoming space for where the inquiries are coming in. Now, for running the team on the night, you really want to be as hands-off as possible, particularly if you're the speaker or you're the MC and you've got the video. You want to be focused on that. But you've got an eye over things. You just keep an eye on things, but you really communicate through Jess. That doesn't mean you can't go up and speak to the team, but it's better if you can. So your person probably won't be called Jess, your leader, but it's better if you go and speak to them and they can do it. It's harder for the leader to get their head around that they're able to talk to visitors, but they've got to stand back a bit and just make sure things are happening okay. When I say things are happening okay, I mean, for example, team members huddling together, not looking for newcomers coming in and not being welcomed properly. Or what happened to us a few weeks ago was that our team had been there for 1 week. It was week 2 of the course, and they had sat with people in week 1, Brand new people came to the course, and because our team were waiting for the people they'd spoken with last week, the brand new people weren't spoken to. So little things like that, you've just got to be aware of. Hey, don't worry too much in the first week or two who you're sitting with. Just grab people, talk to them, that kind of thing. Now, the night finishes. The leader sends a WhatsApp, anything to pray about from tonight, and she'll send that message, or he will send that message, and then that will back and forth for a few days. The day before the course runs again, the next week, there'll be another few messages on that group. I think those communication means, WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever they are, whatever you want to use, are great ways of low-key communication with your people to keep it together. So that's happening, back and forth. The people are coming, they're being encouraged. What I like to do is before or after church on Sunday, just like to check in on them, make sure they're going okay, how they're finding things, how encourage them along, particularly if they've been discouraged by things or whatever it is. The same with the catering, same with the setup. We get to the final week. The final week happens, and people have an opportunity to profess faith, and we pray at the end, and then there's a feedback form they fill out, and that feedback form makes it really clear if they've prayed that and whether that prayer is actually understood. There's a couple of diagnostic questions which are pretty impossible to get through unless you've really grasped the gospel. Now, at that point, I get those forms, not the team, and I make the decision. I'm not going to tell the team the identities of the people who've professed or not. The reason for that is in the lead up to filling out the form, I say these are confidential. These aren't for everyone to read. They're just for you. I will read them, the leader of the team will read them, but no one else. Now, I do that because I want them to feel that they can say whatever they want, and I want to honour that. I've also been burned before. I didn't say it previously. Someone on staff told someone else about someone else's conversion, and it was a big secret to them. They wanted to keep it very private, and it sort of got out, and more people found out, and they weren't comfortable with that, and it was very messy. So I want to make sure that I've got the details, and I celebrate with the team, but I don't celebrate by telling them who professed or whatever. But I say, hey, we've had this many people profess, and I'll say, and a bunch of people have signed up to come back next week for the follow-up Bible study course that will be kicking off afterwards, and I'll tell them who's coming, that kind of thing. So I do want to encourage them in that, but I've just got to be cognizant of both the confidentiality of the people and the information and that kind of thing. So the course finishes. The last week, the team finish up. I will send a WhatsApp with a bit of a report, and then for the next few weeks, I will say, hey guys, keep praying. We've had 7 people, all these people came, bang, they're coming, and so on and so forth. Now, after the last week, sometimes I might call up a team member and say, hey, listen, you've been sitting with John, and John has said he might come to the follow-up course, but I'm not convinced, but you really clicked with him. Would you be keen to come just for the first week of the follow-up? Now, they're often exhausted, but they'll usually say yes. And that can be a really helpful transition piece for them as they come into the next stage, for the inquirer, the brand new Christian or not yet Christian, into that space. So I want to allow the team to be involved in that process where I can. I want to celebrate with them as time goes on, and so giving them feedback 2 months down the track or whatever it is, that, hey, the people you sat with, boom, they're still meeting. A lot of them, of course, will see them at church on Sunday, or they've made connections and that kind of stuff. But that is just a continual source of encouragement. Now, I also bring into the catering team and the setup team that information and news to make sure they're involved in all of that. Now, that's the big picture of the team. There's a lot more details, of course, of how these things run and what is the training specifically about how they actually should conduct themselves. And I'm happy to outline that stuff at a later date. But that's the big picture of why the team is so central. Let me just finish by advocating again for the use of a team. They are so essential to non-Christians having a great time, to the growth of Christians, to the growth of the course. In this one in particular, I spoke about the conduct of the teams during the course. They need to be encouraged, okay, as they come. They need to be continually communicated with, and also they need to be able to be celebrated with at the end, so that you bring them into this process. And the hope is, of course, that they will keep coming. But every term or every time you run this, there's a new opportunity to add 1 or 2 new people in to continue to build that. You imagine over 10 years, as 50, 60, 70 people end up having been leaders in this space or team members in this space. It's a great opportunity.